Galactic Standard Date. Year 11356. Day 96. Sol Standard Date. 4th of the 8th, 3267. Semenov kept backing away while waiting for the main reactors to come online. He began initiating the stealth systems as red ships descended onto the Azarian priest. They were only corvettes, so they weren't overly large. The tactic was to overwhelm the priest at close range with numbers. The main reactors kicked in on the Bessemar, and Semenov engaged the stealth systems while charging up a shot. "We might be marked by the priest, but I bet those warlords can't see us. With this, we should be able to use the distraction posed by the Inquisition and nail the priest in the back of his slimy head." Anya grinned and started chuckling. "Captain, I am not going to lie, this has been an emotional roller coaster. Once this mission is done, let's go get some drinks." Semenov raised an eyebrow. "Just the two of us?" Anya smiled and nodded her head. "Yeah, Captain. Mikhail." Semenov grinned lasciviously. "Guess I need to make this battle quick, eh?" he said, as he made his way around the warlords to the priest. Nagan trembled with rage as the quarry he had so easily bested ended up escaping due to the interference of the hated Red Ones. Nagan couldn't help but scream, "I will burn all of you heretics alive." He fired blades of fire into the red ships, and they split with ease. They were at close range, so it was impossible to dodge the Allfather's magic. He could only fire a blade every 15 seconds or so, and they had brought around 100 ships. Nagan ordered the warlords to begin tearing apart the ships that neared him while he focused on ranged attacks. Between the massive tentacles and the blaze of fire, the Inquisition had barely managed to get a few decent shots off of the warlords. Tentacles were shooed away as missiles and kinetic drivers tore through them. At the same time, the warlords were grabbing hold of any ship that got too close, and they would pull those ships apart like they were toys. Nagan grinned with his horrifying fanged maw. "It is time to try out the Allfather's new magic," he thought, as 15-foot-long needles began to appear in front of him. First a dozen, then 2, then 100. He kept on feeding phalanges into the spell as he silently chanted. He finally finished with several hundred needles. They all shot forth at 5C and pierced straight through the small ships. Some of the ships had their reactors pierced and they exploded immediately. Others began venting the atmosphere before the nanites repaired the damage. All in all, the hundreds of needles had only managed to kill off around 25 of the remaining ships. He grinned at the devastation and began weaving another needle wall. As he began the chant, needles appeared in front of him. Then he could feel the strange sensation of electrical energies behind him. Then all he knew was darkness. Nagan's head exploded and sent Azarian brain matter splashing across the warlords. The warlords froze and turned to the half-pulp body of their charge. They couldn't make out what had even happened. The Inquisition had taken the opportunity to focus their fire on one of the warlords, and they began kiting around him. The death by 1,000 cuts method was still death, so the warlords began chanting to create an escape rift. The one the Inquisition was attacking suddenly had his brain case forcibly open from behind, as well as covering the nearby ships in gore. Yagaditha quickly finished his rift and dragged the corpse of Nagan with him. He tossed Nagan's corpse in first and then crossed the threshold himself. As the rift was closing, a final shot was fired that caught Yagadath, gutting him and spattering his guts across the veil. In his final moments he called for his master. "Allfather, please, this one needs your guidance. We failed." Mael appeared minutes later, eyeing the carnage left behind. The corpses of his children splattered across miles of land. He growled and snapped his fingers, turning back time for his children. Nagan and Yagaditha snapped to attention as their bodies were brought back before their deaths. They both bowed to Mael, and Nagan played with him. "Please, great Allfather, allow us to go back into the battle. We must amend our failure." Mael looked at the children with cold eyes. "No. You will instead be used to attack them in a new location. We are going to make a statement. We will attack not only the heart of the ones that the humans met first, but also the family of Basileus. I found the one he cherishes as a child. We will break her, and through torturing her, we will break Basileus' spirit. I am gathering the largest force since the advent of the war, so you can't possibly fail me this time." The crew aboard the Bessemar stood up and began cheering. They had just killed some of the most difficult enemies the Azarians had to offer, and they had managed to survive. Some collapsed from mental and emotional exhaustion afterward, but that wasn't an option for Semenov. "Raskalia, do you think you could pinpoint Bjorn's Q-fit?" Rasalka appeared on his control board. "You're so old-fashioned that you won't bother to use me for any of the fighty stuff, but you will use me to pinpoint the location of a barbarian on some random world of primitives. Ha ha ha. Fine, yes I can. His location has been pinged, and above the location on your map. Semenov gave her a half-hearted smile and shrugged. Sorry, Rusalka. Thank you for helping me, he said, as he turned the Besmar towards Endor. He slowly descended through the atmosphere towards the marked location of Bjorn. As he came closer, he could make out a plume of smoke, as well as a berserker mech fighting to defend a half-destroyed ship. He sent a communication request to the mech, as he began to accelerate the descent. The request was accepted, and Semenov was met with a face he hadn't seen in centuries. Balgruf! Damn kid, it's been a while, you've certainly grown. So where is Bjorn? At the mention of Bjorn's name, Balgruf's face hardened, and he tilted his head towards the smouldering ship. Semenov grit his teeth as the realization dawned on him. Balgruf, we killed the priests and warlords. We should be able to reverse time locally just fine now. We will cover you, just go help him. Balgruf's face brightened, as he heard the words he'd been waiting to hear for what seemed like an eternity was spoken. Yes, Division Commander Semenov. Semenov stood up, and began walking to the wall as the floor turned to nanite dust around him. The nanites crawled up his body, and began forming a standard Spetsnaz kit. Anyone who has kept up their training during retirement, on me! Any who have neglected CQB training in the last decade, remain on the Besmar. After he said that, the entire bridge crew stood up, and began walking over to him, gear formed on their bodies as they made their way over to a bulkhead. Rusalka, open us a door. Nothing special. The bulkhead they had gathered by slowly disappeared, revealing a cloud that the Besmar was passing through. Semenov took a running start and leapt out of the hole. Anya followed close behind, and the rest of the crew filled out quickly after the two. The 12 retired Spetsnaz operatives engaged their jump packs, slowing their descent just before impact. As soon as they made landfall, they spread out in a circle around the downed ship and unloaded on the small horde of baby Azarians. Their fully automatic 4-gauge Benelli launching 2-pound Brazilian steel explosive-tipped slugs tearing straight through the pitifully small Azarians. The group of 12 soldiers methodically swept away the smaller Azarians, laser-focused shots killing them quickly and cleanly. Balgruf smiled and hopped out of his mech, heading into the ship where he had left Bjorn. He lifted Bjorn's body and began walking to the medical wing of the ship. He placed Bjorn on the table and tapped the case Hungim was residing in. Hey, little buddy, think you can start the medical facilities in here and help Bjorn out? He said, as he placed the Rubik's Cube-sized block in a computer terminal. Hugin appeared in the air above Bjorn and nodded his head. He disappeared as the light appeared and began to slowly pass through Bjorn. Balgruf watched as Bjorn's intestines slowly began to reform, followed by his kidneys and ribcage. The muscles and skin followed soon after, and then the pale form of Bjorn seemed to gain a better complexion as blood was replaced and his heart resumed beating. His chest began to slowly rise and fall before his eyes shot open and he sat up in a panic. Wild-eyed and looking for enemies as he bellowed in rage and held his side. Soon he realized that he was in a blank white room with his longtime friend sitting in the corner staring at him teary-eyed. Bjorn slowed his breathing and calmed himself as the realization sunk in. Ah, I died. Thanks for saving me, man. Are you... No, you're not okay, he said, as he sighed and hopped off the table. He walked over to Balgruf, who stood up with a sad smile. Balgruf stifled a sob before reaching out and wrapping Bjorn up in a hug. You're like a father to me. You were my favorite asshole, and I thought I had lost you. We shouldn't be alive either. There were 2 warlords, even the priest. Bjorn patted him on the back and pulled away. How did they die? Did Basilisk himself come in and save the day, or what? Balgruf chuckled. No, haha. Old man Semenov swooped in to save you. Bjorn was visibly taken aback. Fuck! That old codger. Great! Now we owe him one.